Before we begin, share in the comments below, where are you listening from? If this story touches you, don't forget to subscribe for more life-changing stories like this one. Eleanor sat still on the bus, clutching the metal pole like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her stomach, round and heavy with 9 months of life, felt like it might tear her in half. And then it came. His voice, like a whip. Get up. My mother's standing. The silence that followed was the loudest thing on the bus. Faces turned. Some shocked. Most indifferent. No one moved. But let's not start there. Let's go back, to the quiet kind of prison. The one you don't see until the door slams behind you. 3 years earlier, Eleanor had moved into Marcus's childhood apartment. But it never felt like hers. It smelled of old lemon polish and something colder, obedience. Everything belonged to someone else, and that someone was Beatrice, Marcus's mother. A woman who didn't speak much, but when she did, her words landed like verdicts. Eleanor. She was more ghost than guest. Even the armchair in the corner seemed to sneer at her when she sat in it. And Marcus, he never quite looked at her. Not really. He watched her, though. Monitored. Corrected. Directed. And the strangest thing. He didn't even work. While Eleanor balanced books and managed accounts at a small firm, Marcus floated between hobbies, quick money, and vague plans. But the less he earned, the more control he demanded. He ruled not with violence, but with erosion. Slowly, day by day, he shaved away at her freedom until she couldn't even breathe without asking first. And Beatrice? She never raised her voice. She didn't need to. One look, and Eleanor knew. You're the outsider. You're the problem. By the time Eleanor entered her final month of pregnancy, she barely recognized herself. Gone were the laughter lines. Gone was the girl who used to sing while doing dishes. In her place was someone, tight. Drained. Worn thin. And Marcus noticed. Not with concern. With irritation. On the morning of the clinic visit, Eleanor knew something was wrong. Her lower back throbbed, her vision blurred when she stood, and a nauseating fog filled her head. Still, she said nothing. She wore a dull gray dress, the one he approved of, and tied her hair back like he preferred. Marcus didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't look twice. Beatrice was already waiting in the hallway, coat buttoned, lips tight. No good morning. No glance. Marcus grabbed Eleanor's wrist, not with violence, but with ownership. We're late. She flinched, but nodded. And followed. The walk to the bus stop was a symphony of complaints, his. About the doctor. The weather. The city. Eleanor listened, nodding occasionally, keeping her gaze on the pavement. A line had formed at the stop. The city was gray. Damp. Tired. So was she. I think I'm going to be sick, she whispered. You'll survive, Marcus muttered, not even glancing her way. The bus is here. The bus was suffocating, full, loud, hot. The metal air reeked of sweat and something sour. Eleanor's stomach clenched as she squeezed inside, nearly tripping over her own feet. Her fingers found a handrail and clung to it like a drowning woman. They stood. She swayed. After 5 stops, a seat opened. And before she could think, she took it. Relief washed over her body like rain on scorched ground. And then. Why are you sitting? Marcus's voice was sharp, acidic. My mother's standing. The world went quiet again. This time, it wasn't peaceful. It was judgmental. Eleanor's cheeks burned. Every eye on the bus became a weight she couldn't carry. She looked at Beatrice, who stood tall and disapproving, eyes filled with quiet disdain. She wanted to disappear. Wanted to say, "I'm sorry." Wanted to get up. But something in her froze. And that's when the voice came. Not Marcus's. Not Beatrice's. A stranger's. "Sir," the voice said, soft but firm, "don't shout at a pregnant woman. That's shameful." The voice didn't shout. It didn't plead. It simply stated, "Don't raise your voice at a woman carrying life. That's not strength. That's shame." The words hung in the air like incense, delicate, undeniable, impossible to ignore. A few heads turned. A cough was stifled. The rhythm of the bus ride had been broken. Eleanor turned her head slowly. At the back, near the window, stood a woman who looked as if she had lived 100 quiet stories. Her silver hair was wound into a careful bun. Her coat was buttoned all the way up. But it was her eyes, those calm, mountain-still eyes, that arrested Eleanor. The woman didn't blink. Didn't flinch. "Dear," she said now, her voice softer but just as unwavering, "you are not furniture. You are not his permission slip. You are your own." Something in Eleanor cracked. Not like glass, but like ice. Something that had been frozen solid for years finally began to melt. She didn't speak. Didn't cry. Just stared. Marcus, unused to resistance from strangers, puffed up. "Mind your business, old woman. No one asked you," he said, lips curled, voice hardening. But the woman remained unmoved. "I'm making it my business," she replied, her tone like warm steel. "Because silence has already allowed too much." And for the first time in forever, Marcus had no words. Eleanor's fingers tightened around the seat's edge. She felt the dozens of eyes again, some judgmental, some confused, a few quietly supportive. But none of it mattered. What mattered was that a stranger had spoken out loud something Eleanor had buried deep inside. "This isn't love. This isn't life. This isn't okay." She didn't defend herself. Didn't explain how tired she was. How sick she'd felt that morning. How every day had been a quiet negotiation between fear and endurance. She didn't need to justify her exhaustion. Not anymore. Instead, she looked at the silver-haired woman and, in that brief gaze, received something more healing than sympathy, recognition. And that was enough. She stood. Not like someone obeying a command, but like someone remembering they had legs. Marcus blinked, surprised. "What do you think you're doing?" he hissed, reaching for her wrist like always. Eleanor gently pulled her arm back. There was no anger in the motion, only clarity. "I'm getting off," she said. Her voice, usually hushed and hesitant, now sounded strange to her own ears, steady. The bus jerked to a stop. The doors wheezed open. She walked down the aisle, step by step, past Marcus, past Beatrice, past all the quiet witnesses. And she didn't look back. Outside, the air hit her like a baptism. Cold. Wet. Real. She had no coat, no purse, no plan. Her phone was nearly dead. Her wallet was back in the apartment. She had a baby due any day now and nowhere to go. And yet, for the first time in 3 years, Eleanor felt weightless. She walked. Through streets she barely recognized. Past bus stops and bakeries, empty playgrounds and slow-moving traffic. Time folded in on itself. She wasn't counting hours, just breaths. One after another. There were no tears. Not yet. Only silence. She didn't have parents to call. No siblings. No warm uncle waiting somewhere with cocoa and a guest room. But there was one name. Lila. They hadn't spoken much in recent years. Life had pulled them in opposite directions. Eleanor had taken the path of domestic duty. Lila had chased a career in urban planning, moved to another city, dated freely, dyed her hair purple for a year, and lived out loud. Eleanor used to admire that. And envy it. But in time, she'd grown ashamed of what her life had become. She stopped replying to texts. Stopped checking in. Slowly, the friendship dimmed into something polite and distant. And yet, now, Lila's name lit up in Eleanor's mind like a lighthouse. She found a bench and sat. Pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. 1% battery. She hit the call. It rang. And rang. And then. Ellie. Lila's voice was warm, surprised, alert. Are you okay? Silence. A breath. Then a whisper. I left him. Lila didn't ask why. Didn't press. She only said one thing. Tell me where you are. I'm coming. Lila's voice had always carried a kind of grounded certainty. The kind of tone that made you believe, no matter how bad it got, there was still a way forward. Come, she said. I'll meet you. You remember the old address, right? Eleanor nodded, even though no one could see. I remember, she whispered, voice almost lost in the rustle of wind. 1 hour, Lila said. I'm putting the kettle on now. And don't argue. The call cut off. The phone died. But Eleanor didn't panic. For the first time that day, she smiled. A real smile. Faint, but alive. She stood. Her body ached from the long walk, from the stillness, from months, years, of carrying too much. But she made her way to the nearest bus stop. She didn't even know if she had enough coins in her coat pocket. It didn't matter. She'd ride or walk or crawl. She was going. It was early evening now. The light had thinned into amber. A hush fell over the city, like the moment after a storm when even the birds hesitate. Her stomach grumbled, loud and unashamed. She hadn't eaten since morning. But hunger wasn't her enemy. Not anymore. She could handle hunger. What she couldn't go back to was silence. The ride to Lila's apartment felt like slipping into a dream she used to have but forgot. People came and went. Neon signs blurred past the windows. Eleanor sat by herself, her hands folded over her belly, protecting the small, growing life inside her like it was the last pure thing she owned. And maybe it was. When she arrived at Lila's building, she paused at the door. Her hand hovered over the buzzer. Her feet hesitated. She wasn't sure what scared her more, being turned away, or being truly seen. The door opened before she could decide. There stood Lila. Still wearing the same oversized sweater she used to borrow in college. Hair a mess. Face bare. No pretense. Ellie, she breathed. God, you look. She didn't finish. She just stepped forward and wrapped Eleanor in the kind of hug that melts years. For a long moment, Eleanor didn't move. Then, slowly, she let herself be held. And everything inside her cracked open. The apartment was small, just a few rooms, but it glowed. Warm lights. A soft blanket thrown over the couch. Books stacked on mismatched shelves. Music playing low in the background, jazz, maybe. Or soul. It smelled like ginger tea and something freshly baked. Eleanor sank into the cushions like they were water. Lila poured tea without asking. Handed over a plate of toast and apples. No questions yet. Just space. For the first time in years, Eleanor let herself exhale fully. Later, over lukewarm tea, the words finally came. She told Lila everything. How Marcus had charmed her in the beginning, flowers, poems, little touches. How she believed him when he said love was meant to be possessive. How it started small, choosing her clothes, checking her phone, telling her which friends were bad for her. Then escalated. To money. To silence. To shame. How she became invisible, even to herself. Lila didn't interrupt. She listened with her whole face. When Eleanor finished, voice hoarse and drained, Lila reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm so sorry," she said. "But I'm so damn proud of you." And Eleanor cried. Not because she was sad, but because someone finally said she wasn't crazy. In the days that followed, Eleanor rested. Her body, exhausted from carrying a child and a secret life, collapsed into sleep like it had been waiting for permission. Lila gave her everything without asking for anything: clothes that fit, warm meals, late-night chats, silence when she needed it. She didn't pry. She didn't fix. She just held space. Eleanor felt like she'd stepped into a cocoon. Not to hide, but to transform. But safety wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. One morning, Eleanor stood at the mirror in the tiny bathroom. Her belly had dropped lower. The child was coming soon. And something inside her said, "You're not just running anymore. You're rebuilding." It was time to reclaim what had been taken. Bit by bit. With her name on the papers. With her dignity in her hands. She picked up the phone and dialed a number from her memory. A local lawyer's office. A woman recommended by Lila's neighbor. "Hello," came the voice on the line. "I need to file for divorce," Eleanor said. "And I need to prove psychological abuse." Filing for divorce sounds simple, like clicking a button or filling out a form. But when your name has been whispered instead of spoken, when your address has been someone else's house, when every decision was made in a voice that wasn't yours, it becomes something much heavier. It becomes war. And Eleanor was preparing for it. The lawyer's office was tucked between a laundromat and a bakery. The sign was modest. The entrance, narrow. But the woman behind the desk had eyes that saw straight through pain without flinching. Her name was Marin. No makeup. No small talk. Just presence. Eleanor told her story, clumsily at first. She stumbled over dates, downplayed the humiliations. Years of being told she was dramatic or emotional made it hard to believe her own truth. But Marin didn't blink. "Psychological abuse," she said plainly. "Controlling finances, isolating you, manipulating your emotions, minimizing your needs, using pregnancy as leverage, classic patterns." She slid a notepad across the table. "We'll need everything. Messages. Photos. Witnesses. Medical notes. Recordings, if you have them. Anything that shows a pattern." And just like that, Eleanor had a job again. In the following weeks, while the city prepared for winter, Eleanor dug through her past like an archaeologist. Her belly now low and heavy, she sat at Lila's kitchen table for hours, assembling her case like it was her armor. Old voicemails. Bank screenshots. Calendar entries. Emails she'd saved but never reread. Each one was a bruise she'd learned to hide, now uncovered with trembling fingers. Lila watched her friend, knowing better than to interrupt. She brought tea. Gently reminded her to eat. Sometimes sat beside her in silence, other times offered soft jokes that made Eleanor laugh in spite of herself. Healing never looked glamorous. It looked like paperwork. Tears. Courage in small increments. But Marcus didn't disappear. At first, his number showed up once. Then 3 times a day. Then 10. He didn't beg at first. He demanded. Where the hell are you? You're humiliating me. You've lost your mind. You're coming back, Eleanor. Enough of this. When she didn't respond, he changed tones. He cried. He apologized. He blamed the pregnancy, the stress, even her. But Eleanor didn't answer. She didn't need to. Because silence, her old prison, had become her protection. Lila blocked the number. But the echoes remained. Eleanor would wake in the middle of the night, hand over her stomach, heart pounding, certain he would show up at the door. But he never did. Because Marcus wasn't after her anymore. He was after control. And she had finally taken it back. Her body began to signal the end was near. The baby moved less but with more purpose. Braxton Hicks turned into something sharper, deeper. One night, while Lila was out buying groceries, Eleanor stood in the hallway mirror, looking at herself fully dressed. She placed one hand under her belly, the other over her chest. This is happening, she whispered. And she wasn't afraid. Not of pain. Not of loneliness. Not of doing it alone. She had already survived the hardest part. When the labor started, it was slow and deliberate, like her body had waited for the exact moment she was ready, truly ready. Lila was there every step of the way. Breathing with her. Holding her hand. Keeping the room steady. The hours blurred. Pain rose and fell in waves. Nurses came and went. Doctors spoke in calm, practiced tones. And then, after the longest night, he arrived. Tiny. Red. Wailing. Perfect. Eleanor stared at the bundle placed on her chest, her hands trembling. Noah. She'd chosen the name months ago but hadn't dared say it out loud. Noah, she whispered. You're safe now. In that moment, something ancient broke free inside her. Not anger. Not grief. Power. The pure, animal strength of a mother who had made it through. She cried, of course. But it wasn't sorrow. It was rebirth. The world didn't stop after Noah was born. It grew louder. Diapers. Midnight feedings. Colic. But amidst the whirlwind, there was an anchor, his tiny heartbeat pressed against her chest. Noah didn't ask questions. Didn't need explanations. He simply trusted. And that trust was everything. Weeks passed. The city slid into a different rhythm, colder mornings, soft fog on the windows, leaves turning the color of rust. Eleanor filed the divorce papers quietly. No dramatics. No letters. Just clean ink on a cold page. She wasn't looking for revenge. Just distance. A clean, wide, permanent space between who she was and who she was becoming. Marcus didn't take it well. He tried calling from different numbers. Send emails titled "We can fix this" and "You're overreacting and eventually I'll never forgive you." But it wasn't about forgiveness anymore. She didn't need it. Not from him. Not even from herself. Then one afternoon, Marin called. He wants a meeting. Eleanor didn't flinch. He can have 10 minutes. In public. You'll be there. Of course, Marin said. Are you ready? Eleanor looked down at her sleeping son, his fists curled like commas, breath light as paper. Yes, she said. More than ever. The meeting took place at a small legal center with glass walls and humming fluorescent lights. Marcus arrived in a suit too big for his frame, eyes flicking around the room like he was looking for an ally. Eleanor sat waiting, calm. No makeup. No jewelry. Just her presence, and that was more than enough. Marcus tried charm first. Tried memory. Tried saying her name like it still belonged to him. "You look good," he said. Eleanor nodded, silent. "I've been thinking. About us. About everything." More silence. "I miss you," he said. Still, nothing. Then. "I can change." That's when Eleanor spoke. "I believe you might," she said gently. "But that won't bring me back." Something flickered behind his eyes, confusion, then wounded pride. "I loved you." "I know," she said. "And I loved who I thought you were." He leaned forward, whispering now. "We have a child." "Yes," she said. "And that child deserves a mother who is whole. And a father who doesn't break people to feel powerful." His mouth opened to respond, but no words came. There was nothing left to argue. She wasn't angry. She wasn't cruel. She was done. He signed the papers. No dramatic exit. No last threats. Just a man walking away from a life he no longer controlled. Eleanor stepped outside into the winter sun. And exhaled. She moved into a small apartment a week later. It wasn't much, just 2 rooms, faded wallpaper, a view of the back alley, but it was hers. She bought furniture piece by piece. Hung thrifted art on the walls. Placed tiny plants by the windowsill and whispered, "Grow." And every evening, she wrapped Noah in a blanket and walked with him through the park, breathing in the new air of her new life. She started working remotely again, part-time at first. Numbers made sense to her. Spreadsheets didn't lie. In the chaos of new motherhood, formulas gave her comfort. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building. Some nights, when Noah had fallen asleep on her chest, Eleanor would stare at the ceiling and think about the woman on the bus, the stranger who had said one simple sentence and shifted the course of everything. She never knew her name. Never saw her again. But she had planted a truth Eleanor hadn't dared to claim before. You are not furniture. You are not his. And that truth had bloomed. One morning, while pushing Noah's stroller down the cobblestone street, Eleanor passed a young woman standing silently beside a man who spoke too fast, too sharply. Their eyes met for a second. Eleanor didn't speak. She simply smiled. Not pity. Not advice. Just a quiet message between survivors. You can leave, too. And if this story touched something in you, even just a little, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We share real stories that remind us what it means to be human. To fall apart, and to begin again. And above all, be kind to yourself. Even when no one else is. Especially then. You are not broken. You are becoming.